Alright folks, what up? My name is Lou. If you don't already know me, like if you're not a subscriber on my channel or if you haven't seen any of the other videos where I state my name is Lou. And basically these are my memo pad videos, which is basically, you know, throughout the day I might get like a revelation or a concept or something and I put it in my phone's memo pad. And I would like to then share that via camera. But the thing is, I've been trying so hard to do this perfectly, you know, because it takes a lot to edit the video sometimes, especially from this camera for some reason. And, you know, grooming and clothing and all that kind of stuff, which I really don't care about, you know. I'm an internet marketer, so I never have to get dressed for anybody or shave or any of that kind of stuff, so. But it's been like a year. I've been waiting to put these memos down on video, but I've been waiting for the perfect scenarios, you know, empty house or groomed and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just saying that because in the future I won't care about that stuff. So you may see me with, like you see me today, some wrinkled old white t-shirt on. You may see my beard even fuller and ungroomed, or my hair might be smushed in on one side because I just woke up and I want to share something, and I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to be real, but I know some people expect professional type videos and stuff, so that's held me back. But I'm not doing that anymore is what I'm trying to say. So these type of videos, because if you are a subscriber, you've seen I'm doing the lucid dreaming journal or vernal video journal. I'm doing the well, I just finished the Man Know Thyself series and also the Gospel of Lou. But those aren't really long, you know. The Gospel of Lou and Man Know Thyself, those videos are pretty long. So what I want to do is make some bite-sized, just conceptual videos where you're not necessarily looking through my screen to see all the evidence behind what I'm saying, but I can just give you the concept and you can go and look it up yourself. And maybe I can make those like 5-minute videos. That way I can touch on those topics without having to do a "this is how I got here" type of video, or introduction to the video. Alright, so this is going to be as candid as possible, you know, mistakes, no edits, none of that kind of stuff. I don't really care. Alright, and I hope that you can be real enough to not care too, so that you can share in it with me on these types of things, because this is my first memo pad video. Alright, this is big stuff for me because I got like a year's worth of stuff in here. The very first one I already have on my mind, so I don't have to go through the video. I would like to talk about perspective, because it's very important. And that's pretty much what each one of these videos would be. It's going to be like a topic, you know, like I said, conceptual topic. And the reason I love concepts is because concepts are like the idea for the movie. You know, you already know what type of actors are going to be in it when you get the concept. You already know what type of finish it's going to have or something like that. You pretty much have the entire thing in this bubble, you know, that nobody else can really see, but you can see it because it's, you know, it's in that intangible space. And you can see that concept, and in that concept is the entire explanation, you know, without words. But in order for me to take this concept and give it to someone, it might take an hour to break down all the, to put all that concept into words. That's why I love concepts, because they're everything in one. You know, it's just like a download instantly. So I get those pretty often, and a lot of the times I like to share them because I believe that every perspective is important, even the negative ones. Because every perspective is important, I put it like that, because the way I see it is every set of eyeballs on this planet is like a different, it's like on a different scale in the colors, what's that thing called? Roy G. Biv thing, color spectrum. It's like every perspective is a part of the spectrum. And if we neglect the perspective, then we neglect the part of the spectrum. And without that part of that perspective or that lack of color, there are certain things that we just can't paint, certain things we can't see, certain things we can't bring to the visual understanding as opposed to the conceptual understanding. So I'm really into perspectives. I used to not be, and the reason being was because of my previous religion. I was previously a Christian, which laid the vast majority of the groundwork for the revelation and concepts that came later to stack on top of that. But the one thing about that is I was taught against perspectives, and I can't necessarily say it was a man that taught me against seeing perspectives, but the book itself tells me that there's only one way. And I can understand that because of the understanding of what Christ is in Christianity. But Christ isn't only in Christianity. But I never would have known that if I didn't look other places. So what happened was basically there was things that I wanted to know that aren't biblical. For example, the Bible doesn't necessarily talk about atoms or why atoms exist, or electrons or neutrons, or why there is a sun in the first place. You know, things like that. They seem to not be important in the greater scheme of things, and that's why science and religion have been separated. But in all honesty, you know, looking at it from the perspective as if there's one God, you know, one supreme deity sitting up there that controls all things. If, you know, he made a sun with planets around it, then he did that for a reason. And I wanted to know why. So I asked him, which may sound crazy, but God has spoken to me more than once, and he speaks to me in concepts. Now I'll get more into that in other videos, but I've also heard an audible voice though, but that's not the point. But what I was going to say was, one day it just dawned on me that, you know, I've always tried to figure out, God, how do you create? How do you create? You know, what are you like? When you create something, when you make something, what is it like? And then one day it just hit me. Like, when God wanted to make humans, he decided to give us blood, cells, bones, organs, you know, things like that. I'm like, in every animal that's pretty much the same. They all have blood, they all have organs, you know, even the smallest little one cell organism has organelles within a cell. So it's like, that's the way he creates. So I'm like, let me put this into perspective with other things. I'm like, when God wants to give man oxygen, he creates trees that clean carbon dioxide and turn it back into oxygen. That's how he thinks, or that's how the God thinks. So you know, it just started to dawn on me like, pretty much everything God creates is organic. It all lives, it all has some type of life, and it comes from something that necessarily can't be created. You know, like a seed creates an entire tree, and then a legacy of trees after it. You know, that's ridiculous. That just doesn't make sense to the way that I would think to create. You know, I'm thinking things created out of metal, plastic, you know, things like that. But yeah, so I wanted to know things like that. I wanted to know the mysteries of the universe and all these types of things, but they weren't necessarily found in the Bible, at least not the way that I was being taught. So I told God that at this time I was even teaching in church. You know, I was getting, according to what people was telling me, very deep, heavy revelation. And I still think so. I think that a lot of things are very deep. But I had to count all those things as lost, because although I had all those things, I still didn't have what I wanted, which was really just to have an understanding of all things, not just scripture. To have an understanding of all things, not just biblical things. To have an understanding of all things, not just all things Christian. And man, it took a long time, because there's a lot of fear there. There's a lot of fear of, well, if I do go and hear someone else's perspective. And well, let me clear up what I mean about perspective. I don't necessarily mean go to someone else's church, join another religion, read someone else's book, but all those things can play a part in it. Basically, I felt like what God was showing me was, or the God, or I'll just say God for better everybody, so everybody can understand from that perspective. What I felt like God was showing me was the gospel of the world. It was almost as if he was showing me how everyone was seeing from different angles, but they were seeing the same thing, but they were calling it something different. Almost like when they talk about that story of Babylon, where which is something that I want to talk about in another video, but almost like that story of Babylon, where it says that, you know, God came down and confused their language. So the people basically split up, and they linked together with the people who spoke the same. Well, that's pretty much all it is anyway. You know, it's all split up, but it's really all the exact same. Like, those people were one before God came down and confounded their language, and then they split up, and now they're all different, but really they're all the same people. They just say the same things differently. So while one person might say consciousness, for example, another person will say spirit. And when another person comes into a church and tries to preach about consciousness, another person will say, we don't talk about the mind here, we talk about the spirit. But for another person, the mind and the spirit might be the exact same thing because of what they've researched and what they've come to figure out. For example, a person that's had a near-death experience, if they don't necessarily have a religious background, the only thing that they can relate to when they're out of their body is that I still see, I still hear, all my senses still function, but my body's over there and it's dead. So this, I would say, is like my mind left my body, because I feel like I'm in my mind right now, you know, not in my, and I know I'm not in my body. So for them it's totally different. But another person is going to say, no, that was your spirit, not your mind. Your mind is your brain that died with your body. But you know, science has come to prove that the mind and the brain aren't the same thing, or you know, consciousness and the brain aren't the same thing. So it's all about what you know. But see, there is something to understand about the spirit through Christianity too, because there are some great concepts and understandings there from that perspective. But then there's also some great understandings and concepts about a Christ consciousness in Buddhism. But let me give you another example. A lot of Christians know about sleep paralysis. We call it some people call it the witch riding your back or something like that. But in Christianity, sleep paralysis is evil, from my understanding. If you look up any videos on YouTube about sleep paralysis from Christianity or a Christian perspective, sleep paralysis is evil. It's when a demon is on you, an incubus or a succubus. And this is what I learned. An incubus or a succubus is on you, and basically it's like a rape type of demon. It's a demon that likes to have sex with us when we're asleep, and things like that. So that's what the incubus and the succubus is. You know, incubus because it incubates you. That's like the male demon, and the succubus because it's removing something from you. That's the female demon. And you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't move, and that's why you have to plead the blood of Jesus over and over and over again until you can move. And I've done that. I've done that recently, actually, because that was just my pre-program. But sleep paralysis is a natural occurrence that happens 4 or 5 times a night, and it's been scientifically proven. I've experienced it. People that I know have experienced it. Just about everybody I know has experienced it. Waking up in the middle of the night, can't move. You might be able to be like, and then you can move. Well, sleep paralysis is actually the body's defense against you killing yourself at night. Because if you don't have sleep paralysis, you sleepwalk, which means that when you go into that place of dreams, your body becomes paralyzed so that you can dream and move in your energetic dream body. Okay, so if you were to not shut that down, you would literally get up and walk and act out your dreams, which is dangerous. That's why the body does that. So a lot of the times if we're interrupted, depending on the chemicals in our body or our diet and things like that, we can wake up within that period. You're not supposed to wake up in that period for obvious reasons. If you wake up in that phase and you can't move, that's also dangerous. You're supposed to be able to wake up and go straight into action, which is usually what happens when you wake up, because you've come to the end of the sleep cycle so that you wake up naturally. But if you wake up in between that, in the phase where you're still in sleep paralysis, then you will wake up and can't move. But it's natural. It happens all the time. Also, it can be induced, meaning that I can sit and meditate. I can lay down, meditate, clear my mind, you know, go into that place, and I can relax my body into sleep paralysis so that I can't move. It's what people do whenever they want to leave their body, whenever they want to let their consciousness roam and leave their body here. It's been done all the time, but that's what I mean, like a matter of perspectives. Okay, so I'll give this last scenario and then I'll wrap this video up. Basically, this is the way I see it. I can have my hand out to you like this, and I can ask you, you know, people say that they do it with a piece of paper all the time. I think that's the best one. But for example, I can say, what color is my hand? And you'll say black, and I'll say no, it's white. And you'll say no, it's black, and I'll say no, it's white. And you'll say no, it's black. And then maybe what I'll do is get up and turn and look from your perspective and be like, oh, I can see why you say it's black. Now look at my perspective. And you're like, oh, I can see why you said it was white. Neither one of us is wrong. It's according to our perspective. See, what we like to do in, I don't know, period, I would say Christianity or in America, but what we like to do, period, is it has to be one or the other. It can never be both. That just doesn't make sense to us. It can never be all things. It can only be one thing. It has to be this and not that. But I just showed you an example of how, you know, we can't label things from one perspective that way. And that has been one of the most beneficial revelations that I've ever received, is just realizing, because like I said, I was afraid to go and look. I was afraid to go and look and hear what they had to say about reality when it comes to Buddhism. And I was afraid to hear what they, this is the other thing. Okay, I've heard many ex-Satanists and ex-witches, yeah, high priests and high priestesses and stuff like that, that have turned to Christianity, and they talk about the things that they've experienced in their sect or in their previous life. And one of the things that I noticed that they have a lot of, and that a lot of people that I knew had a lack of, was understanding how things work, as opposed to, for example, I used to have this car where what was it, put it like this: I bought the car, everything worked fine, but I drove a car there to pick it up. So I had to come back later to pick the car up. When I tried to start the car this time, it didn't work. I'm doing everything. I'm like, oh, they got me. They sold me this car. They took the battery out, something. I don't know what they did. And then I hit the emergency brake, and while I'm turning the gas, and I hit the emergency brake and the car came on. And I was like, oh, so I guess that's how you get it to start when it doesn't start. So I drive the car home. The next day, no problems. But the next time, there was a problem. Hit the emergency brake. Didn't work. Uh-oh. Now I don't know what to do. Jiggle the key. Da-da-da. Basically, I couldn't figure out what made it work, but I had assumptions. You know, I never tested the theory over and over again to see if it actually worked. I just assumed, because there was a desire for something to work, and then something happened in between, and then it worked, but I didn't know how. That's kind of how it is in Christianity. You know, that's how it is in most religions. Nobody really knows how. They don't know how it works. They have theories, they have traditions, rituals that they follow, but they don't know why those rituals or traditions work. Most of the time, it's really just to drum up enough faith so that you can make it happen, because we are the ones with all the power. But if it's one thing I learned from that side, the dark side of occultism, if you can say that. But one thing, because I was definitely afraid to go into that. Please, I don't want to be on no occult website where a demon might leave my computer and enter into my home, because, you know, as a Christian, that's how I'm thinking. Or I don't want to be influenced by Satan. I don't want to be influenced by this. But I had to understand that by me even thinking like that, how small I was making the supposedly God that I worship. Oh, but you understand what I'm saying. I just, there's a lot of fear and doubt, and that kept me out. But when I actually went to look, and I don't suggest everybody does, do it when you're ready, but when I actually went to look, man, I found some craziness, some crazy stuff. And people would be very, very, very surprised to realize how much occultism is actually in the Bible, and how the Bible comes from occultism. Because occult means hidden, secret things, mysteries. If you know about those mysteries, secrets, you know, revelations, things like that. And the reason that it's hidden is so that the average person can't duplicate the results. It's just that simple. Because if they knew how to duplicate the results, then everybody would have power. So what you do is, you learn it, you understand how things work, you give people a set of rituals and traditions to follow that without basically saying step A, step 2, step A, step 2, my goodness, step A, B, C, D. Instead of saying these are the steps that you take to get there, you say, you know, don't eat for 30 days, and I want you to sit in one spot and, you know, contemplate this idea until such and such happens, or something like that. You know, for them, they don't necessarily know how it happens. They just know the ritual to follow. But you understand the inner workings of everything. It's kind of like people who use the internet. They don't really understand what's going on, but they know if you type in this website into this bar, it pulls up a page or a website. You know, they don't even know that you just see one page at a time. They consider it the entire site. You know, so it's just things like that. You know, not understanding the in-between part is what got me to really searching. Because if I can see somebody, for example, I watched that movie The Secret, and I saw people who weren't giving Christ any credit. They weren't, well, not everybody was, but I mean, some people were, but there were people that wasn't necessarily talking about Jesus, but they were still putting faith into action and getting results. And that's when I realized that faith was a law, and laws apply to everyone, not just Christians. So I had to sit back and say, okay, well, where are other people demonstrating faith at, and how do they see faith? Because I tell you what, the law of attraction is faith, but it's faith from a different perspective. It's somebody else seeing faith. Somebody from Christianity is going to say faith is when God tells me something, I believe it, or faith is believing what the Bible says, even though I don't know that it's going to come to pass, like blind faith. Law of attraction is see it first and then you believe it, or believe it and then you'll see it. As opposed to blind faith in Christianity, they're still both talking about faith. They both still work the exact same way. One person's a little bit off though, because there really is no such thing as blind faith. Faith comes through revelation. Because I'll get into that another video. Another person is looking at faith as something that you can actually manifest yourself. And other people are going to say, they're going to look at these guys and say, look at them trying to do faith without Jesus, or look at them using biblical principles without worshiping Jesus. But all the people who came to Jesus, I think out of the 22 that came to him that he prayed for, he said, I think it was 17 out of those 22, he says, it was your faith that made you whole. He says, I didn't do anything. It was your faith. The woman with the issue of blood that pulled virtue out of Jesus. Especially when you understand, what the mark is. But I'll talk about that another time. So perspective is very important to me, and I think that it's a great place to start as far as sharing these memo videos, because without everyone's perspective, you can't see the full side of anything. Any cop will tell you, or at least this is what I've heard multiple times, that if there's 3 people at a car accident, there's 3 different stories, and none of them match up. But if you get them all, then you can get that slither of truth. And that's how it was. That's how it was with me. It's like, imagine all of these being perspectives, right? But where they intertwine at is a truth. It's kind of like when in the Bible when they say, don't believe something unless it has 2 or 3 witnesses. Don't believe a person unless they have 2 or 3 witnesses to back them up. That's why you're not supposed to bear false witness and stuff. So that's how it is with truth. When you see a person, a tribe from some part of Western Africa that doesn't, or isn't supposed to know, I should say, isn't supposed to know anything about the stars, but they know stuff that was later discovered, centuries or so later by science. Discovered by science, right? Or rediscovered later, but they know this, and the two things line up. It makes me want to listen to more about what this tribe says that they understand about reality. Now, I listen to this tribe, and then I go over here to Dr. Quantum, who's a quantum physician, and he studied quantum mechanics and stuff, and he's saying the exact same thing they're saying in a different way, with quantum mechanics, lingo, and tests and things to prove it. When you put those two witnesses together, you have a truth. People who at one point in time had nothing to do with each other intersect. And then you can take that one little point of truth and you can put that on your belt and say, okay, I'll look for more witnesses. And as more witnesses combine from all around, you get the gospel of the world. You get everybody's perspective looking at this one central thing, which is truth. And everybody has their filters that they're looking through because of their past experiences and yada, yada, yada. This is supposed to be like a 5-minute video, but everybody's looking from their perspectives and they see this one thing. And if you can understand everyone's perspective, then you'll have a better grasp on the truth than all those people combined, because what they lack is everyone else's perspective. So if you can gather these perspectives, then you can sit in one place and see from multiple angles. That's what I'm talking about. You become like, what is it? Omniscient or all-seeing, something like that. Okay, so it's almost it. One more example, please. This is just how I talk. I say the same thing over and over and over again in many different ways to make sure people understand that I can't help it. It's like a sickness. So okay, so I'm looking here, but what I can't see is the camera from the side. But if I had someone over there sitting there looking at the camera from the side, they could tell me what was there. Likewise, and then someone from the back, and looking at the camera likewise. Now, if they could all feed me their view, I'd have a better perspective than all three of them, because I would have all of their perspectives. While this guy here only sees from this side, this guy sees from that side, this guy's the back. Now he has his own thing. He can go around and tell anybody about the back of this camera. This guy over here has his own thing. He can go anywhere, tell anybody about the side. And this guy here too, the same. And me, before I met them, I could tell you anything I wanted to about the front of the camera. But when we all combine and come together, we can go around and tell everybody a full picture of what the camera actually is, as opposed to one side of the story, when there's 3 other perspectives at least. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I think perspective is so important, and that's where I'm going to wrap this video up at. I thank you guys for spending time with me. I do apologize for being long-winded. I honestly can't help it, because the point isn't to be short. The point is to get the concept out there so that people can understand it. So hopefully you can bear with me on that. If not, find someone else. Alright, so I'm ending this here. I'll see you guys in the next video very, very soon. Alright.